Now, we all know what we're here for today. It's the anniversary of the Screwjob.
Please.
Yes, right? I gotta say now, 28 years later, how do you personally reflect on that Screwjob to date?
Fuck Shawn Michaels.
I really look at it and I go, I'm really proud of myself. I think when I look back on it more and more, and I'm really proud of every single thing I did. Really for probably a year, they were just fucking with me, just tearing me down and trying to, when I think about that time, it's Vince was such a slime ball, such a crook, he really was. He was tell you one thing and do another and tell you another thing. And, I just, I kept my integrity. I was honest in every conversation I ever had with Vince. I always spoke the truth to him, told him what I didn't like or what was going on or this happened I think it's fair to say now, I don't want to get into a big, pulling a big scab off, but of course we're here to talk about the Screwjob, so I really think, and I'm trying not to be so much controversial, but I think I didn't realize, or actually I did realize a long time ago. I thought about it back in 1997 when it was all happening. I remember going, when Shawn, if you remember, forfeited the belt on Monday Night Raw and retired to go find his smile somewhere. And really, that, when all that happened, I remember in the dressing room when Vince told everybody that Shawn was going to forfeit the belt because he had his knee or something? I can't remember I think it was his knee. And then I remember when Shawn, he was crying in the ring. Shawn was crying in the ring, and the tears were in his eyes and all that. And I just remember Vince, I was watching on the monitor in the back area with Vince. And me and Undertaker looked at each other, and he rolled his eyes that this whole thing was a bunch of bullshit and that there was nothing wrong with Shawn, especially when you saw Shawn. Shawn, if you remember, he went to the corner and did a standing backflip after he forfeited the belt because of his knee injury. And I'm watching this, and he does a standing backflip somersault off the top and lands right in the middle of the ring. And I'm going, you can't do that with a bad knee. This is all bullshit. And I remember Undertaker looked at me and he pulled his eyelid down like this, like it was like. And the thing is that Shawn came back, and I remember Vince crying. Like when Shawn was in the ring talking about, he lost some part of himself, or he was gonna go find his smile. I remember Vince had the tear roll down his cheek. And I remember watching it and going, I think there's more going on here between these two guys. Honestly, and I'm not trying to be, I'm just being honest and blunt, but I don't know, I suspected, and now I really have serious, I think that Shawn and Vince were sleeping with each other. I'm just telling you, I think I'm very close to the truth here. Shawn and Vince were lovers, and that's why I'm being dead honest, and I'm telling you.
We all know what the H stands for.
When I look back, it's like, I got caught between two lovers. And I got shafted and screwed over, and Shawn was so envious and jealous of my position that he finally had to sleep with Vince to get it. And I tell you, I say all this with absolute, I would say it to Shawn if he was right here. I would actually like to have Shawn come clean and say, look, we were lovers. Because I'm sure they were. I have an absolute 100%. If I saw either Vince or Shawn here, I would say I think you guys were lovers.
I love it. Now, do you think it changed the wrestling business after you left for better or worse?
Well, clearly it's not better. No, I don't know. I can't answer that. It's hard for me because wrestling's like booming right now, so popular. It's probably as popular maybe as it's ever been. And I'm like, I have a hard time watching it. Like, I miss the realism. Like I don't know, I mean, that's why UFC is becoming more popular. I don't know. It's like, I liked my wrestling, because I think all wrestling, to be a great wrestler, you have to be a great wrestling fan first. Which is why maybe if I was any good as a wrestler, if you guys really appreciated my wrestling, it's because I grew up watching wrestling and watched so many different wrestlers from so many different parts of the world. French wrestlers, Canadian wrestlers, Japanese wrestlers, Mexican wrestlers. They all washed up in Calgary sooner or later, and there was all these different styles and English wrestling. And, I got a really good education on wrestling, and I think I really understood. Most of the time when I was talking with even like Steve Austin or somebody, it's like, I would always put myself in the audience, if you can imagine this, but I would visualize the match from the front row and how a fan would perceive it or what a fan would think and I was always able to do that, to project what would capture a fan's interest and like what would be a great finish or what a great ending would be if you did this. And I was always really good at putting really good little ideas together and then tuck them in my back pocket and keep them for like years and years and years. And then all of a sudden it's like, you go into Wembley to wrestle Davey Boy and it's like, I got an ending that nobody's ever seen that will blow the roof off them, even though they didn't have a roof. But I just, you just know. It's like, I know what the fans will love. And because I was a fan, like a real fan, like a real diehard fan that waited to, for every Friday for the show and sold all my programs so I could watch the first match and would watch. I loved wrestling. It was a real fan. So I think that's why I was as good as I was, is because I really wanted to deliver the great matches that I got delivered to me.
I gotta ask you this now. What did you learn about, let's say, trust and business after that whole little shindig?
The whole little shindig being Vince?
Let's put that, yes.
Well, I learned that integrity is everything. And I think it was right from day one, like even the day after I knocked Vince out. When I got home, I can remember looking myself in the mirror and kind of like, did I fuck up? Or did I just, what the fuck did I do to bring this all on? And it's like, I worked my ass off for this guy for 14, 15 years. Gave him everything from front turnbuckles to, every body slam, every turnbuckle. I gave him so much. I never missed a show. I wrestled, I think, 14 or 15 straight years for WWF, and I think I missed one show in 15 years. And it's like, I gave so much and worked so hard and tried so hard. And when I look at how, in the end, how Vince treated me and how the screw job, and I had overwhelming odds. The things that they were trying to do, like even the week of the screw job, they're all planning and plotting this out, how to fuck me over in the ring and fuck me over in Canada in front of all my home fans. And I'll be honest, Montreal was always really good to me as a city. First time I wrestled in Montreal, I had been in the WWF about a month. I can't remember. Eventually we came to Montreal, and I remember like Bret Hart, Calgary, like I remember walking out, and I got a pretty good response. Like I remember they actually welcomed me, and I remember then having a match. I can't remember who I wrestled, but I had an okay match, and I remember I got cheered, and I just remember the next time I came back, when I walked out, I got a good pop. I was like, geez, it's only my second time here, and I got a good pop. And I always thought, because I had a good match last time. And the people in Montreal were all like real fans. Montreal had some of the greatest wrestling fans in the world, just like Madison Square Garden or Boston Garden. It's where wrestling was invented, and that's where all these cities were where wrestling was formed. And so that's where it all started. And they understood they understood wrestling, Montreal fans. And I always felt Montreal was a place where, if you wrestle really hard, they appreciate it and let you know that they like your style. And so the next time I came back, and the next time, and the next time, and I always had a good following with the fans here. And same with Madison Square Garden would be the exact same thing. They always liked me in New York because I worked hard and gave them a good match. And so I think, what was the question?
No, keep going. But no, I should say about the trust in business, like if all that.
Well, going back to Vince and all that, I mean, I just, when I looked in the mirror that day after it happened, I was always like, why did this happen to me? Like I gave this guy everything I could give him. It's not like, it's not like I was looking forward to knocking Vince McMahon out, or looking forward to a confrontation with Shawn. I didn't care. I did care. No, I shouldn't say that I didn't care, but I'm an old school guy, and wrestling business is something that's in my blood, in my family, and I know how wrestling works. I grew up in a wrestling family, and like Vince McMahon's got no more say about wrestling than I do. Like my family's every bit as involved in it as his family was. And so I know there is honor in wrestling, and there's a trust between two wrestlers. When you agree to wrestle somebody and you go in the ring and you're basically giving him your body, and he's going to give you his. You have to have trust. Of all the things in wrestling, there's no more important thing than trust. You got to trust the guy. Like if somebody body slams you, climbs over to the top turnbuckle and starts to climb up, and he's standing on the top turnbuckle and you're lying in the middle of the ring with you like this. That's trust. You have to trust that he's going to jump all the way off that turnbuckle with a knee drop or an elbow drop or a headbutt or whatever he's going to do, and that he is not going to hurt you. And that takes you have to lie there, and that's where the onus is on the guy that's climbing up. He's got somebody that's got 3 kids at home and a wife that are waiting for him to come home, and you can't jump off and break his neck or be careless or reckless. You can't jump off and do the Goldberg to him. You just can't. It's like, it's all about that trust. And when you jump off and deliver a perfect knee drop on some guy's chest, and then he rolls over and he's selling it like crazy, he's actually going, this guy's fucking great. This guy, I never heard it all. And that's what wrestling's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be, you're not supposed to hurt guys, and it's all about trust and respect. And, when I was champion, I didn't ask them to make me champion or pressure them to make me champion or anything like that. I ended up as champion from Undertaker, that SummerSlam. But I think they put the belt on me for the sole reason that Vince wanted to screw me over and push me out the back door like nothing, like just sort of kick me out, and not just let me go, but to tear me down so that I lost all my value before I left the company. And so I had in my contract, I had creative control for my last 60 days to prevent them from doing that. So, I had every right legally to protect myself from whatever they might do to me, storyline-wise. So when I found out that it was me and Shawn wrestling at Survivor Series, Shawn had been refereed the match at SummerSlam, and we were not quite talking to each other yet. Kind of like, I didn't know if there was still issues between us or not. You always hope that you can move forward and start over again. We're the first 2 guys in the wrestling business to have differences or disagreement. It's like, okay, so you always have to be, in my mind, it's like you always have to be professional. And when I found out that I was wrestling Shawn, I didn't know the ending. I didn't know what they were doing. And my contract was up in limbo. I wasn't sure if I was staying or going, or but I just know that Shawn, I went to Vince. No, I went to Shawn. That's right. This is the crux of the whole screw job. Is that I went to Shawn and said, "Hey, I heard we're wrestling at Survivor Series." I said, "I just want you to know that I've always been a professional, and that when you work with me, that you can trust me. And I don't have any problem dropping the belt to you, or whatever the finish is, or however they want to do is fine with me." I said, "I just wanted you to know that." And so then Shawn looks at me. This was in Anaheim, California. He goes, "I appreciate that, but I just want you to know that I'm not willing to do the same thing for you." And to me, it's like, I don't know if you can absorb that the way that, that goes against everything that in the wrestling business. Like, nobody ever says that to anybody. And it's a total disrespect, especially after what I just said to him, after what a piece of shit he'd been for the last year. And I was like, I took the high road and told you I'd be happy to do whatever they want. I have no problem losing to you. And you have the nerve to tell me that you appreciate it, but you're not willing to do the same thing for me. Which takes, to me, that's unprofessional. And I'm like, that's not, that changes everything. If you're not willing to, if you don't have any respect for me, then how do you expect me to have trust and respect for you? So that is the problem. And I've never had anyone ever say that to me in the wrestling business. I don't remember that ever happening anywhere in the wrestling business, at least not very often, where someone refuses to lose. And so I did all the right things and took all the right measures. And I remember Vince, that maybe about 2 days later, pulled me into a dressing room with Shawn. Or he actually pulled me in the dressing room and he goes, "We think we're going to put you with Shawn at Survivor Series." And I'm like, and he goes, "We're going to have you drop the belt to Shawn." And I'm like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." And he's like, "What happened, or why not?" And I'm like, and I told him exactly what he said. And I remember Vince went, like, he was like so mad. He goes, "I can't believe he said that to you." And I'm like, "Well, he did. And I'm not doing business with a guy like that. And you better find somebody else, because I'm not doing shit with Shawn Michaels. I never dropped the belt to Shawn Michaels. I never dropped the belt to anyone that has no respect for me, to do the right thing with me, especially after I offered to." And so that's where the whole problem was. And of course, Vince went and got Shawn. I don't know how many people have read my book, but he went and got Shawn, and Shawn came in. I remember Shawn crying his eyes out, which also brings me back to, I think that they were lovers. But they really, Shawn was crying, and I remember I say the stupidest things sometimes, and I can't believe I said that to you. And I'm like, it's like, I don't know, I remember I told Vince that day in the room, I said, like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is like, I've never had anyone ever disrespect me like that. But I'm not dropping the belt to anybody, period. And that's where that all started. I shouldn't say that. I did say I dropped the belt to anybody but Shawn. And I stand by that. He was unprofessional. I should have just beat the crap out of him. But.
Now, I gotta say, Bret, we all here thank you so much. You're not just gonna give your flowers. We want to give you as much as possible, saying you're our hero, our idol, and beyond that. Right, guys? We want to thank him for being here in Montreal today, right, guys? Exactly. And now, signing off, before we do this meet and greet, he's gonna meet all you guys. Is there a final message to the Montreal fans that's just stuck with you this whole ride?
We love you, Bret. We love you.
Thank you, Bret.
Thank you, Bret. Thank you, Bret. Thank you, Bret. Thank you, Bret. Thank you, Bret. Thank you, Bret.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for watching me for so many years. And I just want to say, I know that I can only sort of like, when I think about when I punched Vince McMahon, like I don't want to leave this room without sort of letting you experience the moment. I just want to describe it to you. Like, I did everything I could to be a professional that day, and I stood my ground on integrity, I was right, they were wrong, and and when they screwed me in the ring, like when I watched that Wrestling with Shadows back, I watched it on Friday before I left in Calgary. And I remember being in the ring, I did everything I could. I remember even when I walked out to the ring, it's like they're gonna try to screw me for sure. Like I know it's coming. I'm gonna do everything I put in my power to stop it from happening. I'm not gonna let them screw me, I'm not gonna let them pin me. The only way they got me was they got me through Earl Hebner, who I pulled the night before, and I said, Earl, if they try to screw me tomorrow, I want you to tell me. I said, will you tell me ahead of time? And he broke into tears and told me, I would never do it. I swear to God, I swear on my kids' heads that if they ever asked me to do that, I would never do it. And I remember telling them, I said, they're gonna ask you. I think you're gonna be the ref. So they're gonna ask you to screw me. So just want you to give me a heads up. Just give me a look or a wink at me or something. Clue me. Because he's all mic'd up and all that. And I suspected that. I really plotted out how they would try to do that to me. And I remember thinking, if they try to screw me, I'm gonna go down swinging. If Shawn wants to go in and go for real out there, I'll just take him out and end the match. And I was pretty serious about my conviction about being right, and I was stuck in my position. I would never have changed anything I did. And when they did screw me, I remember I couldn't believe it. It was like 15 years I gave this guy everything. I'd never missed a show, I've never missed a town. I just thought I gave him so much that this is not any way to treat a guy like you would never do that to Wayne Gretzky, But I just really felt betrayed, and I still remember all of that. And when I came to the dressing room and went back to the back, I went straight for Vince's room. And I remember hitting the door with my shoulder, and I realized like steel doors bolted into the cement and stuff like that. I could hit that door for the next 10 years and never get in there. So I just stopped, and it's like everything just went right down. All the anger and everything just went right down to the bottom, and it's like I calmed right down. I was almost like joking around in the dressing room, and then I was showering. I'm still mad, but I'm just distracted myself. And I remember they came in, Rick Rude and Davey Boy came in the dressing room, and they're like, Vince is waiting for you. He wants to talk to you. And they were like so excited. They're like little kids. And I said, tell him to go. Just tell him to go. There's nothing that he can say to me to fix things. And the only thing that can happen is that he's going to get hurt. And somebody's going to, just tell him to go. There's nothing to. So they went and told him, and he said, no, I want to. And what was really happening, and if I can just project all this to you guys now, is that Vince knew that the only way for him to lose, he was going to lose a lot of face and respect to the wrestlers. The wrestlers were outside the dressing room smashing stuff, picking up those big giant barrels and throwing them places. Everything. There was like a mini riot in the back area of the dressing room. I remember wrestlers breaking stuff, and it was like real attention. Everyone hated Shawn back then, and so there was a lot of dressing room tensions, and of course the show was over and people were going home. So Vince, when Undertaker went to his room and said, you got to come down and explain yourself to everybody. You've lost face with everybody. And so Vince immediately is like, how do I turn this into a positive? It's like, I know what I'll do. I'm going to go and confront me and try to back me down. And he's going to try to fight with me. He wants to fight with me because that's the only way he's going to win favor with the dressing room because of what he did. Or at least that's the plan in his head. And I was like, when I came out of the shower, first of all, I was stark naked. I had no towel or anything. Davey Boy used to always steal my towel. He did. He stole my towel that night, so I got no towel. So I come out completely soaking wet, naked, dripping wet, Vince is standing there, and I'm like thinking, if they ever do a movie, you don't want me being naked, standing on Vince, punching him out naked. It's just not a good way to tell your story. And so I was like, so I had to walk past Vince, and it's just kind of funny because I really wasn't looking. I'm not a very confrontational kind of guy. Like, I'm not really like that. And I'm pretty passive most of the time. And I think that's what Vince was banking on. And so we had this little, conversation in front of everybody. And I remember I said something to him about, as soon as I get dressed, as soon as I get my clothes on and get dressed, if you're still here, I said, I'm gonna knock you out. I don't know why I said that, but I must have meant it, because, but Vince, he didn't budge. And I remember when I was tying my shoes, like, I didn't put a shirt on because I thought, like, the way the dressing room was, like, Vince would be where you guys are. And Shawn was right here. Undertaker was right here. And then on my left would have been Owen, Davey, Jim Neidhart, Rick Rude, all to my left. And then there was a wall and another dressing room, and a bunch of wrestlers were behind there. But I just remember when I tied my shoelace, I tied my first shoelace, and I remember like putting my second shoe on, and I'm going, as soon as my lace is tied, it's game time. Like, if he's still here, I'm not gonna back down from him. So I remember I tied my shoelace and I stood up, very calm, like I stood up and I said, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with this. And I remember I picked my knee brace up, which is a big metal, like a bear trap. And I picked it up and I said, I started to walk to him with it. And then I stopped and said, I don't need this. And I threw it back on my bench. And we walked up and Vince came right towards me. Like, it was like, I knew that he wanted this, as we were walking towards each other, getting ready to tie up, like, almost like to have this fight. And I'm going, I can't believe I'm gonna fight Vince McMahon in the dressing room. But at the same time, I'm ready to rip his head off. And so I remember we kind of come forward and we almost like we tied up. Actually, we tied up like two pro wrestlers. I remember I had Vince's shoulder pad. We used to have those big padded shoulders. I had his shoulder pad with my left hand, which is why I know I didn't hit him with a left cross, which Undertaker is always saying, but that's not how it happened. Anyway, I grabbed him by the shoulder pad here, and in that moment, every wrestler is jumping to pull us apart. It's gonna be a pull apart. So it's gonna be a scuffle. And I realized in that moment that a scuffle is a victory for Vince. As soon as we touch each other, and then Vince and me are it's like we grab each other, nothing happens, and everybody jumps in and pulls us apart. That's the ending Vince pictured. And it's like a pull apart, and then you son of a bitch, and I'm yelling at him, and he's yelling at me, and everyone pulls us apart. To Vince, that's the beautiful ending. That's the perfect way for this story to end, because he stood up to one of his wrestlers and all this kind of crap. And I'm like, we tied up, and I remember thinking, if I throw a punch right now, someone's gonna grab my arm, and that'll be the end of it. And it'll be a big giant pull apart with a bunch of ripped shirts and stuff, but nobody's gonna make it. It'll be yelling at each other, and Vince going, I won. Like, this will give me the respect that I need in the dressing room. And so in that moment, as I walked to Vince, I'm like, as soon as we grabbed each other, I know that this is a trap. Like, this is a mistake. Like, something bad's gonna happen here. And Vince is laying a trap for me. And that would have been it. I was just about ready to throw an overhand punch, and they would have grabbed my arm, and that's exactly what would have happened. It would have been a pull apart, and we wouldn't even be sitting here today. But instead, I remember I was like, I'm gonna go with an uppercut. And my God, that was such a great punch. And I just want to project, like, Vince lay on the ground like a starfish. He was like down, out cold for maybe 5 minutes. And I remember I just sat down. Everybody just sat down, and it was just, everyone was at Vince's. Like, first he's out cold, and they sat him up on his, and then they dragged him by his arms and armpits. They picked him up and brought him over to a chair and sat him on the bench. And he was like trying to shake this. He was out cold. I broke my hand, and I knew it right then. And I remember sitting there, and I thought, Shawn was like this. Shawn was like this, and he was crying. And I remember like being like kind of where you are. And I just knocked out Vince, who was still out cold. And I remember looking over at Shawn, and I remember his face, like he's bent over. I remember I was like, I should go for a 50-yard field goal right now. And I remember I walking over to him, and he was crying, and I think he knew, like he was scared shitless. Shawn knew that he was in a room with a bunch of wolves, and he was the only lamb in there. And I remember walking over to him, and I remember thinking about it, and I said, I should just kick the shit out of him right now. I know he was in on it. He's the piece of shit. He was involved in this right from the start. And I knew it, and then I knew that the best thing to do, I just remember I walked up to him and I said, Shawn, I slapped him on the shoulder while he was, and I remember he barely tilted his head to look at me. I looked at him, I said, thanks for the match. And he burst into tears and started crying.
I love it.
And the last little high of the whole day, I'll just say this because it's important, is Jim Neidhart got fired a few years before because he threw a television monitor at one of the agents. He picked up actually a TV monitor in one of the back and threw it about 40 feet and just went right over the guy's head. And that was when he got fired. But I remember that day after all that happened, there's this quiet in the dressing room, and Jim Neidhart goes, so I guess they won't say anything to me anymore about the TV monitor. and everybody in the dressing room just burst out laughing. It was such a funny little moment where it was like this quiet tension. And I just shook Shawn's hand and sat down, and it was like this tension, and it's like, and I just remember it just cracked everybody up. Undertaker, everybody just burst out laughing, and it was the funniest thing.
I love it. Guys, give it up again for Bret the Hitman Hart.